To my dear friend who lives in the world right next to mine, I'm finally taking a quiet night to write to you. The room around me is dark except for the glow of the screen, and the soft hum of the machine helps me pretend I am not nervous about the next decade. Our next life lottery is 3 years away, but in my chest it feels much closer than that. I wonder what that kind of distance feels like in your world, where your body and your place in life do not slide around like glass pieces on a table. You probably grow into your life like a tree grows into the ground, and that idea both comforts me and scares me at the same time. I am used to growing more like a traveller who always keeps a bag half packed by the door. The first time I really understood the life lottery I was 12 years old. There had already been a lottery when I was 2, but my memories from that time are blurred and full of feelings rather than clear pictures. At 12, everything was sharp. The air in our apartment was full of the smell of tea and fear, and my mother tried to hide both from me. She kept rearranging small things on the table, like the coasters and the spoons, as if order in those objects could protect our future. She told me that no matter what the lottery did to our bodies or our address, I would always be her child and she would always be my mother in her heart. I nodded, but I also looked at the clock, because once the countdown starts in this world you can almost hear it in the silence. When the notification finally arrived on our life ledger, the screen flashed a gentle blue, as if it were announcing a weather update instead of a new life. For a second there was hope that we might stay together, because the system sometimes groups families for 1 more decade if certain conditions are met. That hope lasted exactly as long as it took for the assignments to load. My mother exhaled first, and I knew it was bad before she said anything at all. In the new decade she was assigned to a coastal region far to the south as a mid-level medical supervisor, while I was sent inland to a dense industrial zone as a student with a placement in a technical boarding school. We both stared at the screen, then at each other, trying to memorize faces we would not see every week anymore. You might think we cried right away, but the truth is that we both became very calm, like people walking carefully across ice. She packed so slowly that night, folding each shirt as if it were a sentence she wanted to get right. I helped, even though every folded piece made the separation more real. When she finally hugged me, she said something I did not fully understand at the time. She said that the life lottery had been created to make the world more fair, but it did not ask for our permission before it started using our hearts as part of the prize. Only years later did her words settle into me like small heavy stones. You might be wondering why people in my world accept such a system, so I will tell you how the older generations describe life before the lottery. They say there used to be something they called the birth lottery, when a person could live and die in the same narrow lane their grandparents walked. Some were born into safety, education, and comfort, and others were born into danger, hunger, and walls they could never climb. My grandfather told me that he once saw a news channel from those days, and it was like watching a game where the rules were written to keep the same winners forever. Anger built up over time, like pressure in the ground before a quake, and eventually people were ready to risk almost anything for a different deal. The life lottery grew out of that anger, but also out of a strange kind of hope. Philosophers, scientists, and many other bright minds gathered to ask a simple question that was actually very hard. They asked how society would look if nobody knew whether they would wake up rich or poor, powerful or powerless, comfortable or afraid. The answer was the system I live under now, where every 10 years the dice are rolled again and every person is scattered into a new role, a new body, and sometimes even a new accent. The only thing that does not move is our memory, which comes with us like a suitcase that nobody can take away. I wonder how this sounds to you right now. Maybe you think it sounds exciting, like endless adventure, or maybe it sounds like a nightmare that you cannot wake up from. For us it is simply life, in the same way that your fixed body and your stable neighbourhood are simply life to you. Sometimes people in my world tease each other about what kind of decade they might be moved into next. We make light jokes about becoming farmers, chefs, judges, dancers, miners, or low-level clerks in endless offices. The jokes are a way to make the fear smaller, like drawing a funny face on a monster so it feels less sharp. Under the jokes, though, there is always a question trembling quietly. That question is out whether any of us actually deserve whatever assignment we get. The lottery claims to be random but balanced, and statisticians study it like a living creature to make sure there are no secret patterns. If someone spends a decade in great wealth, it is unlikely but not impossible that the next decade will also be comfortable. If someone spends a decade in heavy labour and deep poverty, there is a slightly higher chance that they will be given relief next time. These small adjustments are meant to keep things from becoming pure chaos, but they do not stop individual heartbreak. You might ask how people form families in a world where every bond has an expiration date stamped in invisible ink. The short answer is that we still fall in love, still raise children, and still form friendships that feel like home. The longer answer is that we love with the clock in the room, and that changes every word we say to each other. I once spent a decade married to someone I met only 2 years before the lottery. We knew from the beginning that our time together was short by the standards of your world. Instead of making us careless, the deadline made us sharper and more awake. We argued less about trivial things because both of us could feel the 10-year curtain drifting slowly toward us. We did not waste days on silent battles, because 10 years is already short when you know exactly when it will end. On our best days it felt like we were drinking life very quickly but also very carefully, like people who know they only get a small cup and do not want to spill any of it. On our worst days we wondered what the point was of planning for a future we could not share. We would walk down streets filled with people who were all counting their own private years, and we would ask each other simple, painful questions. We asked whether a promise that lasts 10 years can be as honest and deep as a promise that aims at forever. We asked whether hearts will really reset as cleanly as our assignments do, or whether pieces of old love stick to us like tiny scars in the soul. When our lottery messages came, we were assigned to opposite ends of the map with no overlap in our roles. There is no appeal office where you can ask to keep the same partner, because that would take us back toward the old world of special deals. We had one final week together as the system gradually moved our responsibilities to other hands. That week was not dramatic in the way stories sometimes are. We did not scream, we did not break things, we did not even shout at the faceless institutions that sent the messages. We cooked, we talked, we made lists of small memories we wanted to hold on to, and we tried to say goodbye in a way that did not crush the years we had shared. People sometimes imagine that constant change must make us numb, but I think it makes us honest instead. When you know every decade might be your last in this version of yourself, you speak more clearly than you otherwise would. You say you are sorry faster. You say you love someone sooner. You walk away from roles and beliefs that do not fit you anymore because you can feel the next version of your life waiting at the edge of your vision. Work and talent also feel different here. In your world, someone might drag the same career behind them from early adulthood to old age like a long, heavy rope. In mine, the rope is cut every decade, but the muscles you build from pulling it remain. I have been many things already, even though by your count I am not yet old. In one decade I worked in a crowded plant sorting materials with numb hands and tired eyes, counting the days until my next lottery with aching shoulders. In another decade I lived in a clean, bright building filled with quiet screens and meetings, where my voice could move resources that my own hands never touched. The skills from each life bled into the next one, like different colours of ink meeting on the same page. The most valuable skill here is the ability to start again without losing yourself. We are trained from childhood to adapt, to learn quickly, to read new rules, and to understand new customs like travellers who constantly cross borders. At school the teachers do not ask us only what we want to be, because they know the answer will change many times whether we like it or not. They ask us who we want to be when everything else around us is moving. It is a different kind of question, and sometimes I think it might be the only one that matters. Of course, not everyone handles this constant movement well. There is a quiet kind of exhaustion that we call lottery fatigue. People with lottery fatigue are not dramatic, and they do not always make the news, but you can see them if you look closely on the trains and in the clinics. They are the ones who have packed and unpacked their hearts too many times, until every goodbye feels like a small tear in the same place. I have a friend who has gone through 4 lotteries now, which means 4 different lives and 4 different versions of himself. In his first decade as an adult he was assigned to a remote agricultural area where he learned how to coax crops out of dry soil with patience and stubborn care. In his second decade he was moved into health administration, a world full of paperwork, chisels, and the strange heavy power of deciding who gets resources first when there is not enough to go around. In his third decade he found himself in crowded housing, working long retail shifts and feeling that his earlier skills no longer fit anywhere. By the 4th lottery he told me that he no longer feared poverty or discomfort as much as he feared losing the thread of who he really was. One evening, sitting on the steps outside a transit station, he told me his small personal rebellion. He said that if the system was going to turn his outer life into a series of dice rolls, then he would choose one thing that never changed inside him. He decided that no matter what job he worked or what status he was given, he would quietly mentor one younger person every decade. It would not matter whether he was wealthy or poor, busy or idle, respected or ignored. Somewhere in his circle he would look for someone who seemed lost and he would help them find at least one solid step forward. He would do this in every decade, like a secret promise to himself. When he told me this, I realized he had found a way to be loyal to his own story in a world that keeps rewriting the setting. The lottery can control our bodies, our addresses, our income levels, and even the kinds of work available to us, but it cannot fully control the patterns of kindness we choose. The thought was strangely calming to me, the way a steady rhythm can calm a worried heartbeat. You might have noticed that I keep talking about feelings and stories instead of technical details. That is because the technical parts of the system do not comfort you at night. Algorithms and fairness reports are not the things you hold when you are afraid. You hold memories, hints, and ideas. Sometimes, late at night, I imagine what it would be like to live in your world, where there is no great countdown every 10 years and no global reshuffling ceremony. In my mind, your world is full of long familiar streets and neighbours who remember you from when you were small. Your parents might grow old in the same house, with the same view from the kitchen window. When you fall in love, there is at least a chance that the two of you can walk side by side until the end of your story, without the system stepping between you to send you in opposite directions. To many people here, that sounds like a dream so sweet it almost hurts to look at directly. To others here, it sounds like a quiet horror, because they remember the stories about the old birth lottery. They think about people who never had a chance to escape a cruel family, a broken town, or a dying industry, and they shiver. For them, the uncertainty of our world is a price worth paying to avoid the certainty of all unfairness. I stand somewhere in the middle. I do not want to go back to a world where a comfortable life is locked in place for some and locked out of reach for others. At the same time, I sometimes wish the lottery would at least knock on the door before it enters and rearranges the furniture of my life. When I think about you, my unknown friend in a neighbouring world, I like to imagine how these choices would look through your eyes. If someone offered you a system like mine, would you accept it? Would you trade some of your stability for a shot at a more fluid fairness, knowing that your heart would have to pay some of the cost? Maybe you would say no right away. Maybe the idea of losing your body, your home, and your role while keeping your memories sounds like a strange surgery on the soul. Maybe you would say that instead of rolling everyone like dice, it would be better to repair the rules in your fixed world slowly and carefully. I respect that answer, if that is the one you would give. But I also wonder whether you already live with a quieter kind of lottery that you simply do not name. There are still accidents, illnesses, sudden losses, promotions that never come, and chances that appear only once in a lifetime. These events are not scheduled, and they do not come with 10-year warnings, but they still change the direction of a life. In that sense, maybe our worlds are not as opposite as they first appear. The life lottery makes the randomness visible and official, while your world lets chance hide inside daily life. In my world we prepare for it like a ceremony, with gatherings, speeches, music, and quiet terror. In yours, you might meet your turning points in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday, with no countdown on the screen. I am not writing to argue that one world is better than the other. I am writing because thinking about your world helps me understand mine with more tenderness. It reminds me that we are all trying to balance fairness and safety, freedom and stability, in whatever rules we live under. When I picture you reading or listening to this letter, I feel a strange kind of calm. I imagine you sitting somewhere with your own small worries and secret hopes, listening to a stranger from a neighbouring reality talk about her strange calendar. Perhaps you are also wondering what you would keep and what you would change if your life reset every 10 years. If you ever feel stuck in your own world, trapped by routines or labels that feel too heavy, I hope this letter can give you a tiny crack in the wall. You can look through that crack and see me packing and unpacking my life, decade after decade, choosing over and over again who I will be when everything changes again. Maybe the picture will remind you that you are allowed to change too, even without a global lottery telling you to. You do not need a new body or a new city to start a different chapter. You can start small, with one new habit, one new promise to yourself, one quiet act of kindness that you decide will stay with you through every season. It can be your personal lottery, the one you control. If the next lottery assigns me the life that is harder than this one, I know I will be scared. I also know that I will carry this moment with me, this night when I reached across worlds and spoke to you. That thought makes the future feel a little less lonely. My fingers are getting tired, and outside the window the sky is starting to pale with early light. Somewhere, others are already making lists of what they want to do before their own countdown reaches 0. I should rest soon, but I want to leave you with one more question. In your world, with all its steady streets and familiar mirrors, what are you willing to leave to chance? And what are you ready to claim as your own choice, even if the world around you prefers you to stay the same? I do not expect you to answer me out loud, but I hope you carry the question with you for a while. Let it sit with you as you walk through your days, as you talk to the people you care about, and as you think about the person you are becoming. Thank you for sharing this quiet hour with me across the thin border between our realities. It feels less like I am talking into the dark and more like I am sitting beside an old friend who listens without judgment. With all my care, from your friend who lives in the world next to yours. If you stayed with me until the end of this letter, thank you so much for listening. If this story made you think or feel something new, please tap the like button and subscribe to this channel so we can keep meeting like this. I would also love to hear your thoughts, so if you have a moment, please share a comment about what you would do in a world with a life lottery or in your own life as it is now. If you want to support this channel and help more messages cross between worlds, you can use the QR code in the corner of the video or the link in the description to send a small donation. In the description you will also find links to other projects from this channel, including very different series that explore other strange worlds and ideas. For now I will say goodnight, and I hope you will come back for the next letter from your friend in a neighbouring universe,